We're going to break down how great stories are actually built. I'm talking from a single word, all the way up to their power to, change the world. Powers really doesn't mince words here. You can have all the data, all the facts, all the logic in the world, but if you really want to move someone to actually change how they act, you need a story. And get this, psychologists have actually seen this play out in labs. A little bit of emotion, wrapped up in a story, can make people do things that a whole mountain of arguments just can't. Okay, so that begs the question, right? What makes a story good? It can feel like some kind of magic, but Richard Powers says, nope, it's a craft. It's a series of really deliberate choices. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to unpack that craft, piece by piece.
So we're going to start at the tiniest level. I mean, the absolute nuts and bolts of a writer's toolkit. Because think about it. Before you can even have a scene or a character, you have to choose your words. And every single word sends a signal.
So the very first choice is about something called register. Basically, it's the level of formality a word has. Are you saying, hey, give me that? Or are you saying, would you please pass that? That single choice immediately tells us everything about who's speaking, who they think they are, and what their relationship is to the person they're talking to. And what's so fascinating about English is that we kind of have this built-in bilingual thing going on, thanks to history, right? We have these simple, earthy Anglo-Saxon words sitting right next to these more formal Latin-based words. See, after the Norman conquest, their fancy French-derived Latin words basically took on a higher-class vibe. And that's exactly why mansion just sounds more expensive than house. A good writer uses this to paint a whole picture of class and character with just one word.
Okay, so from words, we build up to sentences. And Powers points out there are basically 3 ways to structure them, and it all depends on where you put the main action. You can front-load it for that immediate punch. He pointed the gun. Bam! Or you can delay it to build suspense. Across the yard, near the fence, she hid. See how the sentence structure itself actually hides her from us, the reader? It's so cool. The third way, splitting the action, is a little rarer but can be super powerful. It's all about controlling the rhythm and the reader's emotional state.
So these building blocks of language, they create a voice, and that voice, it creates a character. But what is a character really? Well, Powers gives us this fantastic model for understanding how they work on the inside. He calls it the character onion. So on the very outside layer, you've got the visible traits, a green shirt, a certain haircut, the stuff you can see. But those traits are driven by something deeper, mannerisms, the middle layer. Maybe he's got a habit of, challenging people. And that mannerism is driven by the deepest layer, the core. These are the character's inner values, things like honesty, perseverance, or fidelity. A great writer makes sure that everything on the outside is a totally believable expression of that hidden core. So you've got a character with these deep core values. Now what? Well, now you create drama. And for Powers, real drama isn't about car chases or explosions. It's about what happens when those core values smash right into each other. And this right here, this is the key. You take a good person, someone who wants to do the right thing, and you put them in a situation where they simply cannot have it all. They have to choose. They are forced to sacrifice one deeply held belief for another. And that is where the story catches fire. Let's take this classic dilemma. Imagine a character who values both honesty and loyalty to their friends. But what happens when their friend does something really, really wrong? Do you uphold the law and be honest, or do you protect your friend and stay loyal? There's no easy answer, is there? And in that single impossible choice, you have the seed for 10,000 different stories. And Powers argues that all of these conflicts, all these impossible choices, can pretty much be sorted into 3 fundamental types of drama. First up is person versus self. This is that internal struggle we were just talking about. Honesty versus loyalty. It's the classic psychological drama. I want both, but life won't let me have them. So the real question becomes, can I live with the choice I'm forced to make? Second is person versus person. Okay, so now you have 2 different people in the same room. My core value might be, say, equality, and yours might be freedom. Now, we can both be completely sympathetic characters, but when we have to vote on the same law or for the same candidate, we clash. This is the foundation of the political novel, where you, the reader, are forced to ask, who's actually right here? And finally, the third level, person versus nature. This is the big one, the drama between all of humanity and the planet itself. Powers makes this incredible point that for a long, long time, literary fiction just kind of forgot this conflict existed. We sort of assumed we had already won. Well, now it's coming back with a vengeance, as we're all realizing we are just one small part of a much, much larger story. So why do all this? Why go to all the trouble of building characters and creating drama? Well, it all comes back to that very first quote we saw. Stories are the only things that create the empathy we need to truly change how people behave. There was this fascinating experiment that just proves this point perfectly. Researchers got 3 groups of people and gave them different things to read. One group got dry data, another got a kind of neutral story, and the third group got a really emotional story. They told everyone it was just a comprehension test, but the real test happened out in the hallway afterwards. So as people were leaving, a researcher would accidentally drop a whole box of pencils. And the question was, who stops to help? The results were just, wow, so stark. The people who had just read the emotional story were way, way more likely to stop and help the stranger. The story had literally primed them for empathy. It made them better people, even if just for a moment. And this brings us right to the ultimate purpose of Richard Powers' own work. He uses all these incredible tools of the craft, not just to tell stories about us, about people, but to reawaken our empathy for the non-human world that, let's be honest, we've mostly forgotten.
Just listen to this passage from his novel, The Overstory. Through this beautiful, poetic language, he's inviting us to see a forest not as a bunch of wooden objects, but as a living, thinking thing. He's giving it agency, a voice, a character. He is literally re-enchanting the world for us.
And here's the most amazing part. This isn't just, fantasy or make-believe. Powers says that every single poetic claim in that book is backed up by actual, empirical, peer-reviewed science. He fuses that intuitive, spiritual way a child knows the world with the rigorous, factual way a scientist knows it. And the result? It's a truth that's way deeper than either one could ever achieve on its own.
So that's the whole journey, right? We started with a simple choice between house and mansion. Then we moved to the rhythm of a sentence, the hidden layers of a character, those impossible choices that create real drama. And finally, to the ultimate goal of all great stories, to create empathy and connection.
Powers has basically given us a blueprint for understanding how stories work their magic on us. So the real question for all of us is, now that we know this, what kinds of stories are we going to seek out? And maybe more importantly, what stories will we choose to tell?